What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Devotionals with Devoted. I'm coming to you live from my basement just because the house is a little noisy and wanted to go through this devotional together in a quiet space. Before we do that, just a couple of announcements. Number one, we're having a Bible study on Monday where we go through the life of Jesus. And on Thursday, the highly anticipated Friendsgiving is happening. If you haven't been to a Friendsgiving, it's an awesome time. We get together, have food, do karaoke, lots of activities. So make sure to come through to Grace Chapel on Thursday. So without further ado, let's get right into the study. All right, so let's get to it. So for today's study, it's going to be on fear. And the reason I chose this was not because I'm currently feeling fearful or anything like that, but it's because of this verse that I stumbled upon in Proverbs, which is Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now, we see wisdom mentioned a lot in the Bible. Specifically, whenever you see wisdom, there's typically knowledge and understanding with it. So I've been thinking and reading a lot about wisdom and trying to understand what exactly that looks like. And I felt like this verse gives a really good picture on how to start acquiring this wisdom. And it says it starts with the fear of the Lord. So I did what anybody would do and go to Google and look up define fear. And I came up with these two definitions. The first has some negative connotation to it. So an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. And the second definition is the positive connotation, which has profound reverence and awe, especially towards God. We see in the first definition that anticipation of waiting on the Lord and his return, but then also too the awareness of danger. And I thought of that. I just thought of non-believers and their realization that they might have when they finally understand that Jesus is the Son of God and that he is going to return. So when we look further into the Bible, it says in 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us the spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. So this verse really stuck out to me. Just continuing on this fear, because fear and timidity, if you look it up in the Blue Letter Bible, really just mean the same thing. It means cowardice. He hasn't given us a spirit of cowardice, but of power, love, and self-discipline. So when I read it like that, it makes me think of Timothy's situation. You know, Emperor Nero was actually persecuting Christians. And Timothy, as the leader of the church, was probably fearful and scared for his life. He probably wanted to cowardice away into his own place. And that would have allowed the enemy to gain traction day after day after day, which is why we have to take up our armor of God daily. So when I read about Timothy and his situation, I think back to in college where I studied psychology, and every human's natural instinct when they're faced with fear has an option. They have an option to run, flight, or fight. And in this case, depending on who you are, a human's first instinct at a threat could be to cowardice and fear. They could run away. They could not even want to deal with it. But in the Word, it tells us that we have to deny our flesh. So when I was thinking about wisdom, I was thinking more about Matthew 16:27, which says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And even in some versions I've read have said take up his cross daily. And this makes me think more about the daily pursuit, the daily actions that are needed to at least begin to spiral into this acquiring wisdom. And wisdom isn't something that is going to be acquired after a couple days. It's going to be acquired after years and years and taking up your cross daily. So denying yourself of that fleshly, product of fear and running away, we have to deny ourselves of that. And this makes me think a lot about a common topic and a common phrase that we use at Devoted, which is just like the eternal mindset. The eternal mindset of what you need to have in your daily life. This was something definitely that started off as a joke for us, and was just something that it was an inside joke that we had. But the actual remnants and the actual truth behind this is that there is a lot more value that we can place in what is found eternally rather than what's found on this earth. I have a good friend that tells me that, I'm going to outlive my house one day. My house might be, old, but I'm going to outlive my house one day in heaven. So just thinking with this eternal mindset and using this as a way to remind myself, if I want to really keep my eyes focused on that, I'm going to deny my flesh daily in reverence and in awe of God, not fear of God, not hiding in cowardice, but running towards him and running to him. And I really love this verse because it just kind of hit me. It said, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather be afraid of him who can destroy both soul and body in hell." This is from Matthew 10:28 from the Amplified Version. I just read that and I was like, wow. Sometimes we think about fear and we think about it in a negative sense, but in here it's just hitting home with that reverence aspect that I keep talking about. And when I was reading an article online, it said, when we assume that the world is the ultimate threat, we give it unwarranted power. For in truth, the world's threats are temporary. When we expect God to balance the stress of the world, we reduce him to the world's equal. And that last sentence really hit home for me, was because sometimes in our minds we can say, hey, I don't know if God's got this. Some things might be so scary, with the economy and layoffs happening right now. You kind of have to wonder, and we say, God, please help me through this time, help me. And by expecting the Lord only to balance that, only to make us through, to get us through, is reducing him to the world's equal. And we're giving this world unwarranted power that it does not deserve. So instead of standing in awe and reverence of God, we are standing in awe and reverence of the world. And when we talk about this verse, in 2 Timothy 1:7, in the second half of this, we are told to counter fear with power, love, and self-discipline. Now, on all three of these, when it comes to power, it means the strength to serve without fear. And, we talk about the awe and reverence. If we're really fearful of God, we're going to want to serve all the time. On top of that, with the second part, we have love, agape love, sacrificial love. And then lastly, for self-discipline, what did we talk about earlier on? Denying our flesh. And nowadays, especially with everything going on with social media, it's very difficult for someone to stick with a habit for more than 8 days. Honestly, I really don't see it from a lot of people. And even sometimes with myself too, that I'll try to start, a new habit. But we have to deny ourselves of the flesh. Have to. And even when we think about creation and we think about us in the womb, it says in Psalms 139 verse 14, it says, "I will give thanks and praise to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Think about all the people that you see with tote bags, "I'm fearfully and wonderfully made," and you enter a home and it's live, love, laugh, and then it's something else on the side, and then you got a fearfully and wonderfully made right there, and it's are you still fearful of the world? Or are you fearful as in awe and reverence of what the Lord has for your life? So when we think about fear in our lives, we have to remember to deny ourselves of what our flesh wants. Our flesh wants to freak out. Our flesh wants to run and hide to places that aren't of God. Sometimes we'll get so fearful of something that we ourselves will try to take control. I know personally, when I am fearful, I try to control it. I try to make Excel sheets. I try to organize things so that I can make everything seem perfect, when the reality is that day after day, God is in control, and He is in control of the actions and the events that occur in my life. I could prepare and prepare, but none of that means anything unless if I'm following Him. So I hope that you were able to take something away from today's study. Tried to mix it up with the computer and the slides. It's just, again, the way that I organize things. But yeah, hopefully you took something away, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.